Welcome back to the channel, and today, Abit. Does anybody remember Abit? Does anybody even know what Abit was, or who, or the company's name? DLM does. Maybe it's because I'm old, at least that's what my wife says, you know, got the gray hairs coming in, that's what she tells me, I'm old all the time. But anyways, Abit was a great motherboard manufacturer, and they were my favorite. They was my go-to. You know, when I started building computers with my dad, when we were building 486s in the early 90s, that's what we went to. And it was great bang for the buck. And that was something that my dad always would say, you know, what we would pay for an Abit motherboard versus the competitor, you couldn't beat it. So why not go with Abit? And their products really did hold up well until the capacitor plague. And we'll talk about that in just a sec. But unfortunately, Abit is not around. 2008, they did go out of business. And it's a shame because I really wonder, like, had they still been the game, some of the stuff they would have brought out, their looks and designs and all that type of stuff, but it's unfortunate. And one thing I would say, just kind of reading up on their history, is that, you know, they always struggled to kind of make their mark into, you know, the market. But when they did pretty well. An example would be the BP6, the Abit BP6 motherboard, in which you had, you were able to take dual Celerons, put them on the motherboard, and now a lot of people, they associate Celerons with poor performance, but hear me out. I mean, this was kind of awesome for the time. The Celerons back then, you know, Intel pretty much put that you could not unlock the multiplier, so you could do overclocking, but there were people that figured out, hey, if you modify the motherboard, you can go ahead and do that. Abit on their BP6 motherboard, they went ahead, they figured it out, and they made all their motherboards so you could overclock the Celerons. And it was kind of cool because you were able to have dual processors, affordable, on a budget, and, you know, that's how it was. It was just cool what you can afford and what you can do with, and, you know, being able to do that with the motherboard, regardless of what Intel said they could not do, I think that was fantastic. And overclocking with Abit motherboards was just so easy. And then one thing that they really were the first to kind of really push out was no more jumpers. You know, other companies started doing it, but they're the ones that really started pushing out in their motherboards, and they were the first to kind of get their hands on it. But before, you would put a CPU in your motherboard, and then you'd have to read the manual and set the multiplier and the frequencies and all that type of stuff, and make sure you had all the jumpers, and then you could turn the computer on, and hopefully you put the jumpers in the right position. But with Abit, what they just integrated in all their motherboards, what they started doing was you just put the CPU in there, and boom, auto detect. Fantastic, game changer. Even though they started pushing out good stuff, they started having a decline. You know, I think it was about in 2003, the designer of their lead engineer for their N4 series motherboards, he went to another company, so that kind of hurt the company. And then AMD took them off of their recommendation list, so that really kind of hurt them a little bit. Capacitor plague, they got hit really hard in the capacitor plague, and their motherboards right now, if you have one of their motherboards, you're pretty much gonna have to redo the capacitors. Hopefully not in this one, but they got sued a bunch for that. And then, of course, poor business management and practices, to say the least. Yeah, they went out of business in 2008, allegations of embezzlement and all that type of stuff. But I think had they had good business management and better business skills, they would have still been on the market to today, and we would have seen a lot more cooler stuff and even have more competition. So today, I have an Abit motherboard. We're gonna take a look at it, put it in a classic case, the Lee & Lee, and go down memory lane. And then maybe now, some people will know who Abit was. So let's get started. All right, so for our motherboard, no, it's not the Abit KN9 SLI with the NVIDIA Enforce 570 SLI. That would be kind of cool, but I don't have this motherboard. This was my original box when I did have this motherboard, but the motherboard, unfortunately, is long gone. But we do have something close, pretty cool, that'll get the job done. We have this. So this is the Abit AN8 32X. It is the Enforce flavor. IDE, SATA, floppy, Molex on a motherboard. Check that out. Wow. Our rear IO. And this is something I was always excited about with these motherboards, was the sound. I had I can't remember what it was. I think it was some Altec Lansing speakers. And when I plugged it in with the 5.1, I mean, the sound was fantastic. And then over here, we have readout. Get the numbers, find out what's not working, what's wrong with your system. So that is the motherboard we are going to be using. Let me plug this back in. I've had this motherboard for over a year, so everything looked good. I just have never tested it out. And for this memory, LEDs, that's gonna look so cool. So 1 gig of DDR, 438 megahertz. So 4 gigs should be more than enough for this Windows XP machine we're gonna put together. Now, I am gonna run a SATA drive just because I don't really feel like dealing with IDE. I know, it's really not authentic unless you use IDE, but it's fine. SATA will get the job done, and I don't have to hear the annoying noises. So this is what we're gonna be using, and for our graphics card, this one's new to me because I didn't know Abit made graphics cards, and hopefully this works. An Abit graphics card. Now this one is the RX 700 Pro with 256 megs of memory, PCIe, DisplayPort, S-Video, VGA, classic. Ooh. That's a little stuck. I think we're gonna have to take this apart and try to free that up a little bit. Now, even though we have the N4 sound, I do have a Sound Blaster Audigy. Creative Lab model SB0570. Pretty sure this works with Windows XP. Don't really need to put it in there, but I'm gonna put it in there just because I have it, so we have that. And like I talked about, it's gonna be going in that Lee & case, PC60 model, I forget what it is. And we're not gonna do a montage because I really wanna show how it was building in that case with a system like this. I do have a 1000-watt EVGA power supply that we will be using. Not sure if it has Molex or do I have to use this Molex. I'll have to double check on that, but we'll figure it out as we go. So for our case, the Lee PC60, yep, 60. This is the plus version. And what I love about this case, removable motherboard tray. Take out these 4 screws, just like so. Pops out. Just pop in our rear I/O shield and toss in our motherboard. Something like that. There we go. And I think what we're gonna do, just to, you know, be period correct, we're gonna go with the silver screws, not the black ones like we traditionally do in builds. Now after your motherboard's mounted, take your graphics card and just pop it right in. Just like so. Now let's go ahead and pop in our Sound Blaster Audigy. And like I said, there's really no reason to install this, but I have it, why not? And there you go. So now, all you'd have to do is just put your power supply right over here, plug everything in, turn it on, make sure everything works, and you're good. You're done. And if everything works, you just slide it into the case. So let's go ahead and let's do just that. This is so cool. Just so cool. And yes, I am extremely fascinated with this. So yeah, that's it. Ready to rock and roll. Let's slide this panel off. There we go. And now I need to take this off because we're going to put our power supply in. So I don't have any Molex adapters for my EVGA, which is fine. But I did find an EVGA 1200 watt power supply that has Molex because it was part of one of those old water cooling builds. And I think the pump or something used to use Molex. So this has Molex. I'm going to plug that into the bottom. I'm not sure if I need it or not. Maybe I think you only need it if you were going to run SLI or something like that. Let me know in the comments, but I'm just going to plug it in for now. And then I'll do my research later. But let's see. We're actually going to not need... I hate to take something out and then need it later. I'm just going to leave everything in. Let's go ahead and pop this in. And I found more of these screws, so that's pretty nice. There you go. Had to loosen these just so I could line this up. So yeah, that's a lot better now. And I'm running out of these screws. How unfortunate. And I think what I need to do is, because I tinker with this old stuff, I just need to get a dedicated power supply just for these old systems that require Molex. Because this 1200 watt really doesn't need to be with this. Now, cable management, yeah, that part. I'm not gonna go crazy. I'm not gonna go for perfect. I'm just gonna go for what works. So our CPU power one is right underneath here. And that's gonna be fun to get to. Maybe it won't be so bad. Is it in? Yep, got it. All right, that wasn't too bad. And we're just gonna tuck things, you know, just, yeah, just kind of do a little bit of that. And this is not gonna be the finished product. I think I might be revisiting this thing and considering other upgrades I could just have fun with. I like tinkering with this older hardware, so I enjoy it. So we got CPU. So we got CPU, we got 24 pin, the graphics card one, we're gonna leave that. The Molex right down here underneath the sound card that's in my way that I should have put after the fact, but you know. So what we're gonna do is take off this sound card, and that's gonna give us room, because I can't seem to get that Molex in. There we go. Now we need to plug these in. This was the adapter for the Asus motherboard that used to be in here. And then since we're in here, let's go ahead and plug in our SATA cable now. And now what I need to do is go ahead and grab myself my boot drive. All right, so storage, where's it at? Where's it at? Oh, it's right over here. I stole this from one of my laptops. So we'll just have to install all the drivers and all that type of good stuff. Should be fine. But we're just gonna pop this in. And it does have Windows XP already loaded on it. So that should save me some time. So I think I'm just gonna tuck this in right there professionally. And do an amazing job cable managing this. Oh yeah. Nice. Let's manage this. Oh yeah, good. Cables managed. So let's go ahead and fire her up. Oh man, that was not what I was hoping for. Let me take a look at it, diagnose it, and then we'll come back. So it kind of helps if you know, plug in the power switch in the right spot. Now let's try this again. Power. I was really hoping that would work. Let's keep diving. The good news is we have power. The bad news, let's see if I could zoom you in. Capacitors. That one has erupted. The one above it has bulged. Drats. Well, that totally is not good. Well, kind of unfortunate. The capacitor plate got me again. It was the same thing with I think it was a Dell. It was an old Optiplex that it had bad capacitors. I had an HP board one time for a customer that wanted a retro build that had bad capacitors. And any electronic component around those time frames, they suffered from the bad capacitor plague, and this one did. Xboxes, they were bad for that too. So it's unfortunate, and I should have taken my own advice. I know I did mention the capacitor issue, and I should have checked the board better, but got a little excited, and I didn't take my own advice in testing on the bench instead of putting it together. So unfortunately, this motherboard needs new capacitors, but I did dive in a little more and took a better look at it, and it looks like some of the board might have gotten damaged, so I'm not sure how bad that is. I will order capacitors in the future and maybe revisit this and see if we can bring this back around. But unfortunately, not today. We're not gonna enjoy the whole goodness of Abit, and actually we're just gonna experience what typically happened with 8-bit. And I think it was around a 3-4 year time frame is when the capacitors really started becoming an issue on these boards. I mean, they didn't hold up long. That was the one thing. When the capacitor plague happened, these boards were 3 to 4 years tops. Sometimes you got lucky with that, but a lot of these old motherboards that, 8-bit motherboards that I've had come in through the garage, I've never done a video because they've just been so totally trashed by the capacitors leaking out. And unfortunately, it does happen. I love tinkering on this old stuff, and yes, I get it. You know, you can do emulation and all that type of stuff, but I just like a dedicated machine like that. I do have a Pentium 4 machine with a Intel board that is in like perfect condition. It's the original board, never been recapped or anything. The capacitors look great. So, I mean, I guess it was just the companies, the capacitors that they used. So I do have a dedicated XP machine, but I really like this whole Enforce thing, 8-bit graphics card and 8-bit motherboard, but it's a shame. And I really do believe that had the company had better business practices, management, and leadership, they'd still be around today. And I think it would have been really cool to see a lot of today's hardware with Abit's take on it. And I think that would have been really cool. Imagine a 5080, 5090 Abit edition, just minus the prices. Or, you know, even a Z790 or X670 or X870 8-bit motherboard. That just would have been cool. But it happens, it's unfortunate. Maybe we'll come back and we'll take a look at it. But for now, older hardware, I still love the stuff. I still think it's fun to tinker with, and if I could save it, bring it back around and just have a little fun, relive some memories with it, and even learn something, I'll definitely do it any time of day. So comment down below, let me know your thoughts, concerns, criticisms. Have you ever heard of Abit? What were your experiences with Abit and capacitor plagues? Jeez, you ever get a heartache from it? If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next. Hopefully no more capacitor plagues. No bueno, no bueno.